Alright guys, welcome back to our Final Fantasy VI playthrough. This is part 11, and I apologize up front for the long delay in between videos here. Sometimes real life happens, but thankfully we're back and we're making videos and recording clips again. Alright, so when we left off at the end of part 10, we had just gotten to the entrance of the Cave of the Sealed Gate. We were trying to go through that cave, and we kind of got our asses handed to us, so we decided, you know what, time to go back and probably level up a little bit. I've decided not to do that just yet, but we are going to go back and do something in Narsh that we neglected to do when we were first here, the last time I should say, and we're going to attempt to get a character that we have seen previously. We're going to get him into our party, and we're going to go into this one little room of Narsh we haven't seen yet, and that is the Lone Wolf pickpocket that we're running across. He's going to take all the treasure out of this room, and we're going to take whatever he couldn't get. So let's see what we get here. We got a thief knife. Earrings, we know what those do. Lots of GP. Wall ring, that is the biggest, most important treasure in this room. The wall ring, as I've mentioned, will reflect just about any magic spell that's not an area of effect, entire hit all attack. So that is huge, and eventually we will need 4 of them in the second half of this game. So we've got 1 down, 3 to go. And that's nice because normally they cost 6,000 GP apiece, so that's obviously a little less GP we have to worry about now. Alright, so again, for this portion, what we're doing to refresh, we are looking for a character in the game we have not run across yet, and I'm not talking about the Sasquatch up there on the top. We will get that one much later in the game. In fact, we may opt not to get him at all, as he is utterly worthless and not really worth our time. But for the sake of being a completionist, we may get him anyway. Alright, so for the time being, we're just basically making sure we have everything that we need. Now, we did get the sneak ring as one of those treasures back in that room, and basically that increases the chance of stealing, and that also works equally as well with the capture command, so we might as well go ahead and equip that on lock here. Otherwise, we noticed that Terra doesn't really have anything equipped just yet, so no, you can't equip 2 hyper wrists. That's not going to double the effect. Not really a whole lot of good things to pick from. I guess we could go with earrings, but we're going to go with what we got. There will be some pretty nice stuff coming up in the cave to the sealed Esper Gate, but for the time being, we're not too worried about that stuff. So we are just going to go all the way back out, up to the top, where we first started the game and where we first encountered the Tritalk Esper. So we're going to go ahead and fast forward until we get there. Just go ahead and sit back and watch what happens until then. Alright, we get ourselves back to the top of the snowy hill here, and whoa, what do we got? We have Pickpock the Thief and one of the Moogles here. And you'll notice we try to approach and nothing happens, so we're going to do what he says. We're just going to sit there and wait and do nothing until the Moogle wakes up. Kaboo! Yeah, you do got a wild one, and whoa! Alright, so we have a choice to make here. We can either save the Moogle or we can save the Pickpocket and get a gold hairpin. The gold hairpin is not worth it. Trust me, you can get more later, and there are many other relics that are better than that. Speaking of which, human loving, same as Moogle. This guy, his name would be Mog. Yes, so Mog is the main man Moogle captain that we first saw way back in the beginning of the game when he was helping Locke to rescue Terra from the guards of Narsh and the Imperial Empire. So guess what? We now have Mog in our party, which is a good thing, as I will tell you this. Mog is a very nice support hero to have. He also has a charm that we can utilize, which will help us very immensely here. And we will talk about that charm that he has in just a minute here. Basically, we're checking to make sure that we have all of the magic necessary to go where we gotta go. And for the most part, we're pretty good. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna leave. Go all the way outside of Narsh, and we'll pick back up when we leave the town and get back to the airship. Okay, we're pretty much good to go, so we are going to make a beeline straight back to the Cave of the Sealed Esper here. Before we do that, we will make a stop at a town and make sure we have all of the necessary healing items that we're going to need. A key hint to remember for this is that the Cave of the Sealed Esper has a lot of undead enemies, which means any kind of curative items, healing spells, things of that nature will actually cause damage, if not instant death. So the more you can stock up on those, the better you're going to be. I'll tell you right now, we're actually in a decent enough shape that it's not necessary, but it's just something that's nice to know ahead of time. Alright, we got these ugly, annoying chicken lips, and as we remember the last time we faced off against a squad of these things, they can cast Quake, and that will ruin your day very quickly unless your party has the float spell equipped. And I honestly don't recall if anybody in our party has that spell learned at this point. I don't think we do. Not that it matters, we dispatch them very quickly. And we're earning a lot of levels here. We're going to be making a lot of GP and getting a lot of levels in this playthrough and this part of this video, and which is good because we're going to need to get leveled up quickly when you see some of the tougher enemies coming up here. Alright, so we head back to Albrook. We're checking to see what we have, and we're pretty good on everything. We're going to buy a couple Revivifies just in case. We're actually okay on tents, but we'll buy a couple more. It never hurts to have more than a couple tents. I'd say 3 or 4 is the minimum you want to have for going into a boss battle or a tough location like we're about to head into here. We're pretty good otherwise. We don't have Shadow, so we're just going to leave, get back in our airship, and we're going to head back to the Imperial base encampment and back to the cave of the Sealed Esper here. We're pretty much there right now, so we're going to park our blimp, blackjack airship, whatever you want to call it, right outside the camp. We're going to go right back inside, up the steps, down and around, and we will be back in the cave of the Sealed Esper. Now, if you remember the last time we went in here, we got our asses handed to us, right? And it was because of these lick wizard fiends that love the spell fire. We're just going to bypass them. Bye-bye. See ya. Now, we got a treasure chest here. Tempest. Now, if we had Cyan with us, the Tempest sword would be really, really nice because it essentially does a dual hit. First hit is really strong, and the second hit inflicts wind damage. Unfortunately, we don't have Cyan here with us, so it's kind of a moot point. But we'll keep it for when we do decide to use him later on in the game. Now this section right here, you're going to notice it's basically twofold. You need to make your way across with alternating bridges. They will randomly appear and disappear, and you have to know and study these sections very carefully and get the stuff in the chests. Up top right, we got an X potion, and we're going to have a couple fights here. And then we have a chest to the bottom left, so I'm going to let this go ahead and play out at full speed so you can kind of study the bridge patterns here. Zombones, these things have a lot of HP, but they're nothing really too difficult you have to worry about. Just hit them hard, hit them fast. They'll go down relatively quickly. I like to bust out the chainsaw here. Chainsaw, drill, aura bolt. The aura bolt does 15 to 1600 damage a piece, which is ridiculous for this point in the game, but it's absolutely nice to have. And be careful, because every time you do fall in the lava here, Terra and the rest of the party will take damage, so just kind of keep an eye on that when you get into more difficult fights here. Alright, and we're going to go down here. We're going to check the patterns of the bridges very carefully. Study them, make sure we know what we're doing. Go over here. And looks good. Well, we get a coin toss. Now, the coin toss is a relic that that Setzer can use, and it basically allows you to throw your GP at an enemy. Sounds good, right? Well, the problem is, obviously, when you're throwing GP, okay, you can potentially get 9999 damage if you have the guild or the GP to spend. Obviously, at this point in the game, we don't have that, so that is a relic that will stay on our bench for a very long time. So looking at this fight here, Colosite, I guess we'll call these things. Red Scorpions, Fire Scorpions. Do not do what I just did here. Do not use any fire spells or fire attacks, fire weapons. They will absorb those attacks, so very much like the lick monsters here. Chainsaw's nice, go all Jason Voorhees on them. Aura Bolt is very nice to use on any enemy, any monster in this cave. Nice damage. Now this is kind of interesting. Magnitude 8 is an earth-based spell, right? And if they can't cast it, they automatically die. I always found that kind of funny. And check this out. We are going to use Locke's Capture and Steal technique here to get a lot of good stuff here. A lot of Phoenix Downs that we can use on a lot of these enemies here and get insta-kills, insta-deaths. I think we're pretty good for the most part, so we are going to have to keep an eye on the MP here. Now the good thing is, pay attention very closely because we have a lot of very powerful curative and attack spells that we're going to be learning throughout the course of this segment of this run here. There will be a character that learns Cure 2 if they haven't already. I believe it's Edgar. And we're going to have another character here learning the Life spell, which is awesome because up to this point, it will be the first time anyone has learned Life. And that's huge because that means that we no longer have to rely on Phoenix Downs in order to revive people. As long as that particular person stays alive, Phoenix Downs are kind of a thing of the past, and you can actually focus on using them on undead enemies here. You can start using them as weapons and items instead of things to bring people back. Alright, we're now into basement number 3, and there are some very particular, interesting, necessary items to obtain here. One of them is one of the ultimate weapons here that you can use for any sword-based attacker, and you're going to see that toward the end of this section of the basement here, as they call it. So we're going to have a lot of the same enemies that we've seen countless times over. Man, look at that damage from the Aura Bolt, 1400, and it's going to continue to grow as Sabin levels himself up here. So we're just going to take them all down, and eventually you're going to see what's in all these chests here. Some of these things are really nice, some of these things don't really matter that much. Take down this enemy one final time with an Aura Bolt Blast, and let's see what we get in these chests upcoming here. Edgar's gaining levels, and there we go. Now pay attention to that. Edgar learned Cure 2. Cure 2 obviously is much more powerful than Cure 1. In later versions of Final Fantasy, the game would be renamed, that spell would be renamed to be called Cura. So it goes Cure, Cura, Curaga, and then if there was ever a 4th level of that spell in much, much later versions of Final Fantasy, it would be called Curaja or Curaja, if you're Spanish El Latino. Alright, we picked up an Ether, good for restoring magic, we all know that. Nothing too critical though, so we're going to go down and around. Always nice to get these side attacks here, guaranteed kills. We pretty much know what to do here, so stay away from the fire-based spells if you can. They work fine on the Zombones, but on the Ings, they will absorb those spells. So, once again, in case you haven't figured this out by now, stay away from the fire-based attacks unless you're fighting the Zombones. Save yourself the time, energy, and magic. Please, please, please. Alright, I think you know what to expect here. You're going to be seeing a lot of the same types of fights here. It's nothing new. So for that reason only, we're going to go ahead and skip through here until we get to the next significant portion of this dungeon. Ooh, now that's interesting. Check that out. Locke learned Ice 2. Now that's huge considering we can't use fire, right? Well, ice can be very much utilized in some of these nasty enemies you're going to see here. Maybe the Ings. So that's something I wanted to point out real quick here. We're going to go ahead and fast forward right about now after we show off Ice 2. Let's see if it does do any kind of damage here. Any significant damage, I should say. And that would be a definite no. So, anyway, it was a good thought. Maybe if you go single on the Ice 2 attack, it would be better off. Alright, here we go. Skipping ahead until the next significant part of the dungeon. Okay, we just came out of a few difficult fights there, and really at this point we're just making sure that, of course, all of our heroes are fully healed, but more importantly right now, we're making sure that we have the right Espers equipped and that we can learn the right magic spells, and for the most part we are, but of course we do have an Esper that allows us to learn the life spell. That would be Bismarck, and that's important because nobody else in the game currently knows that spell, so we're going to put it on Sabin here. So we come back out, and we're going to come up on one of the most very important chests you're going to see in a long time, the Genji Gloves. This is a huge relic that allows any player to attack once with 2 separate weapons here. So like 2 swords, 2 flails, 2 whatevers here, and that obviously is huge because it allows you to deal double the damage here. Obviously it comes at a cost. You won't be able to use a shield item to defend yourself, but I think the trade-off is more than worth it here. And honestly, there will be relics later in the game that will allow you to further abuse attacking. And you'll see what I mean much, much later. Pros of this game know very much what I'm talking about when it comes to pairing the Genji glove. But for the time being, I'm very glad that we have it. Speaking of which, I should point out there was an occasion to grab a Genji glove much, much earlier in the game, back when we were talking with Bannon and we first got on the late river. We did have an opportunity to grab a second one. We neglected to do that, and that's just because I haven't played the game in a while and I forgot about it up until right now. But honestly, we'll be okay with just one. It's not that big of a deal. And as we continue on, we're fighting a whole bunch more Ings, and these things are not difficult as long as you remember, once again, not to use any kind of fire attacks here. So it is what it is, and really for the most part, it's going to be much of the same fights you're going to see from here pretty much to the end of this cave of the Sealed Esper here, with a couple minor exceptions. So we're going to go ahead and continue on through this cave until we get to yet another critical point in this dungeon, and I think it's coming up rather soon, actually. Alright, I wouldn't necessarily say this is a critical point, but I will point out that anytime you come up against a ninja enemy like this, the ability to flee is banned. You are not allowed to run away. You do need to fight them. So, if you do trigger this fight, make sure that you take them out quickly and without mercy, because they will deal massive damage. So, use your highest attacks, use your blitzes, use your drills, high magic. We were very lucky there he didn't get a single attack off, or it could have been kind of nasty there. He has use of the skeins, and you will see ninjas much, much later in the game. So thankfully we got rid of him. He doesn't really give us anything useful, but that switch is necessary. Go inside. There is a save point here, so if you don't think you're going to fare very well in the upcoming section here, you can use it. It's not really necessary, but we can use the tent that we just garnered right there, and I think we will do that because we have a couple players who are getting low on MP, so you don't necessarily have to save the game here, though you can, but we will be using it for the necessity of refilling our MP. So that's been done, that's out of the way. We're now going to continue on with the next part of this dungeon here. We got one more battle with an Ing. We could choose to fight them, but they're really more of a nuisance right now, so we're just going to run away from them. And we have a switch right here on the bridge. We will go ahead and flip that, and that actually is a required one because it allows you to go down. There is a chest here that we can grab, and as you're going to see when we open it up, nothing really too critical, just an ether. Got one more little battle to go, and with the Zombones, we've come to learn that these things are not tough at all. Hit him with the Aura Bolt, that will take him down relatively quickly. Boom, down he goes. Man, I cannot, well, even if he didn't go down, 1,500 damage on one blitz attack, and I know that we've seen that quite a bit at this point, but it just blows me away that we're dealing that much damage considering where we first started. We weren't even dealing 100 damage. Yeah, and again, you've seen nothing yet when it comes to attacks in this game. Just trust me on that. Anyone who's played this game knows that very well, but we got some good stuff still to come here. Now you notice that we've been stealing quite a few Phoenix Downs here. This is a good talking point. Remember, as I said earlier, before we went into this cave, most of the enemies in this cave are undead, and you can use curative spells or curative items to take them out, basically. And we're going to use some of those Phoenix Downs to our advantage here in just a moment. Now this cave's kind of interesting. When you walk in there, you have to walk up, over to the right, up, over to the left. You kind of have to snake your way up and around to get through there. If you don't know what's going on there, that will trick you, that will frustrate you. You'll think it's a dead end at first, but no, you can get through it. You just have to snake your way up and through the cave. So we're going to go ahead and take care of these enemy monsters here one by one, and then we will move on to the last section of this particular map, where you're going to have to trigger a lot of switches, basically. Just hit the switches, move the platforms around, keep hitting the switches. It's not as tough as it looks, and really it's not that tough in the first place. So just play smart, hit hard, heal hard, and you'll be at the end of the cave relatively soon. Alright, we come out of rage, and I do that for a very specific reason. Check this out. Lots of levels, and ooh, if you caught that, Terra just learned the life spell, and she did it without the use of an Esper. So, this is massive. This is the first time a character in the game has the life spell in their possession, and we're going to use that to our advantage throughout the entirety of the game here. Later on, we'll use more advanced levels of the life spell, but for right now, this is amazing because we no longer have to worry, once again, about using any kind of Phoenix Downs here. They can be used as attack items, basically, against undead enemies. So, in the unlikely event, or, well, I shouldn't say unlikely, because we will be seeing characters go down from time to time. So we will be using that life spell very, very frequently. And obviously, she's not the only one that will learn the life spell, but for the time being, obviously, do not let her go down. If she does, that's what the Phoenix Downs are for. You'll use those to keep your life caster alive as much as possible here. So enough about that. That was a very critical juncture in the game. We're going to go back to blasting zombies, killing undead enemies here, and we'll see you at the end of this cave. Alright, we're going to come out of hyperdrive momentarily here for a couple reasons. We got 4 chests in here. 3 of them have, okay, magicite, ethers, whatever, but the 4th one has an absolutely critical attack weapon here, and I'm not even talking about the Genji gloves we got earlier. So look at this one. Atma weapon. In various versions of the game, later versions, revised versions, it's called the Ultima weapon, but the Atma weapon is arguably considered to be the best attack weapon in the entire game. Why? Well, it's basically based on your attack and health levels here. The higher it gets, the more damage that you deal here. So right now, obviously, it's not going to do a whole heck of a lot. But by the time you get to the very end of the game and you're facing the final boss, it will be doing massive damage. So imagine using the Atma weapon paired up with the Genji glove and some other ridiculously overpowered weapon. The final boss isn't going to stand much of a chance. So it is absolutely amazing to have that weapon. We're going to definitely put it on somebody who is very skilled with swords and high attack power. But for the time being, we're just going to get back to flipping some switches here. So as you probably noticed, as we were going through hyperspeed here, when you flip those switches, it will cause the bridges to move, it will cause the islands to move and bend and break. Do what you got to do, open the chests, and we'll continue on. We're almost done with this cave here. One more thing I'm going to show you here before we go back into rage speed and watch a little cutscene. You notice that we're getting a lot of random magicite pieces, right? Well, I should point out, and although we haven't really demonstrated this yet, because there's really no need to and waste the MP, but all of the Espers that we're equipping, not only do they allow you to learn magic spells, but they have their own unique individual abilities that you can use in battle once per turn. The individual magicite pieces that we are picking up allow you to simply use those individual unique abilities in battle. The only downside is we don't necessarily know which Esper it's going to summon that time, so it is completely random. Go ahead and use them if you feel like it. Maybe use it on a tough boss that's giving you trouble. I tend not to use them because some of those Espers don't necessarily help you. They can harm you. There's one in particular I'm thinking of at the very end of the game. Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So anyway, we got one final battle here with a couple more zombones, and we're going to let Saban do what he does best. Wow, nearly 1,700 damage with the Aura Bolt, and he's still not dead, but wow, that's a lot of damage here. Now here's Locke using the Phoenix Down. Boom, gone in one shot. So you can see how nice it is to have that Phoenix Down. And we come into this thing with plenty of them and a big stash, it wouldn't have been a big deal at all. But as it stands, this cave wasn't as difficult as we made it out to be, was it? So here's the very end of it. We're going to come out the end, and Edgar does have the Cure 2 spell. That's very nice to have. So we come out the end, and ooh, very ominous, eerie scene right now. This is basically the cave to the gate of the sealed Esper here. If you think back to that cutscene which we skipped, if we were to go through that door right now, we would be in the world of the Espers. That is right, it is the cave of the sealed gate. Now, normally, I would skip through here right now. However, there is going to be a sequence which requires our attention. So we're going to let this play out for just a moment here, and then we'll skip through the rest of it here. So right now, basically, as we watch the story and read it and watch things unfold, we are counting on Terra to open this gate up for us. But oh, wouldn't you know, boom, there's Kefka, and he's going to try to sneak in behind us. And in the meantime, it's going to be up to our remaining party members to hold Kefka at bay while Terra does what she has to do. Yep. You can play like a fiddle. I don't like that. Not a big fan of stringed instruments. It's brass all the way for me. Yeah. Alright. That'll be enough for you. You can shut your hole. Alright, so it says we gotta keep Kefka busy, right? It'd be nice if we could kill him. Unfortunately, that's not the goal of this right now. Now, I will say, we are strong enough that one decent shot will take him down and end this little mini cutscene battle. One aura bolt, that's pretty much all it takes. Door started to open. And yes, it has. And watch what happens. Enrage speed! Yikes, I gotta say, that's kind of scary, especially with the sped up music here. It kind of makes it a little more eerie, a little more frightening than it needs to be. Alright, so what just happened? The Espers flew out of that gate there, and they weren't too happy to see us. And as a result, we don't know what the heck's happening right now, but we need to go out and find those Espers, clearly. So the cutscene's over, and the cave to the sealed gate is closed, and now it's been blocked off by boulders, so good luck ever getting through that gate ever again. We're going to take out one final barrage of the Zombones here, and then we're going to exit the cave, and thankfully, we can very quickly get back to the entrance of the sealed gate because a hidden door passageway just opened up. So we're just going to head down south after we kill this last enemy here, go through the hidden passage, and back out the sealed gate, and I guess at this point we're going to have to track down where exactly those freaky little Espers went to. And then that should probably take us up to the end of this point of the video and this part of the game. But let's see what happens. Yep, right out to the final path, back out to the entrance. We're going to go right back through the Imperial encampment. Right on down the steps. We've pretty much taken everything that we need to at this point. Out the front door. Yeah, you know damn well what happens, Sime. Go ahead and read through the story. Yeah, if we knew, we would go there right now. Oh, we do know. Toward the capital vector. Well, that would, interestingly enough, help us because we're not really big fans of the Emperor and the Empire. So, we're going to go ahead and speed through again. We have another lovely little cutscene, and if we were playing the game for real, I would definitely want to watch this at regular speed. But basically what's happening is, we know where the Espers are. We see them, and they're none too happy to see us. They don't really recognize we are trying to befriend them, and oh, in the process, they kind of did some damage to our airship. Pow! And we've just crash landed. Not a good thing, right? So much for our flying days on the airship. We're going to have to temporarily disembark and go on to the next point of this game here. So what's going to happen at this point? Oh, and there's Mog, by the way. Remember, we picked him up. We're not going to put him in the party just yet, but at some point we will utilize him because we do want to get some of his special dances. They can be pretty useful in the heat of battle, but not right now because we're pretty much at the end of this point of the tape of this game and this challenge, as I've mentioned, for the time being. So we're going to disembark, and at this point in the next part of the video, we're going to make a trek toward Vector, but that's for the next part. So we're going to save, and we'll see you in the next part 12. Thanks for watching.